Now we're going to shift into things you need to know when you want to rent your cottage out, say like an Airbnb, something like that. So I know you do that. You rent yours. Do you rent yours year round or just in the summer?
I do, yeah, year round.
And then do you use Airbnb? I know you've...
So I am on Airbnb, but I really restrict the times a year that people can book through Airbnb. My goal when I bought the cottage was to really use my network to rent it out to people I know. My concern with Airbnb was random people staying at my cottage, and I'm up there often myself. So I just don't want to come across problems or headaches or have people party and leave a mess. I feel much more comfortable renting to people I know. So I've had success, luckily, with family and friends staying up there. I make sure that I charge them less than anything comparable on Airbnb, so they know they're getting a good value. I know my place is in good hands. And honestly, like 99% of the people take care of it like their own. And that's pretty much what I can ask for. I have had a few bookings through Airbnb in the off season, and they were successful. I was very happy with it. But essentially what I did was I had guys I work with build me a website where I can direct people to, and they can book directly through my website, or they can just message me directly. So I have kind of my own little platform for that. And then Airbnb helps pick up a little slack in the off season for me when things do slow down.
Do you know offhand, how much does Airbnb charge? I've always been curious about that.
Yeah, so what I noticed, and I haven't done it a ton, so I'm not perfect at this, but I have noticed they charge a couple % on top of your nightly rate.
Okay.
That gets factored in, and then there's a service fee that they dictate what they charge, and that service fee is completely theirs.
Okay.
So if you set your nightly rate at like 400, they could add like a small percentage to that, and they keep that, and you get what your nightly rate is.
Okay.
You put the cleaning fee, and you get that. They add the service fee, and they take that. So everyone usually tries to say a certain exact percentage, but I think it varies. But I haven't dealt with it enough to know exactly what kind of percentage they're taking. I just know that's how it works.
That's kind of how it works. Okay, I've always been curious about that.
Yeah.
So like if you're renting it out, I know even not through Airbnb, like what are some expenses you run into renting it versus if you were just using it yourself? Like what are things to consider?
Yeah, no, totally a great question. The biggest thing is cleaning fee. So I have a really good cleaning company up there that I've gotten to know well. So you want to factor in that because they're not just cleaning the house, they're doing all the bedding and kind of staging it for the next person to come in, making sure everything's exactly where it should be. And you'd be surprised how much gets moved around in 1 week when people are at a cottage. Yeah. So a good cleaning team is something that's very important to consider. In the summer, you've got to factor in all your landscaping, and these properties are typically bigger. So your grass cutting, tree trimming, and all that will be an expense. When you go into the winter, you got to factor in sanding the driveway and having a snow plow. I've had like flash freezes where my driveway turned into an ice rink. And my cleaner actually slid into a ditch from my driveway.
Jeez.
Luckily, she was okay, but things you don't realize, I've had lightning storms take out trees, and then I got to call in a tree company, and all of a sudden they're chopping up trees $500 later. For the winter, you got to take your dock out of the water, and then springtime comes around, you got to put the dock back in the water. So there's definitely things like that you got to factor in. I'm lucky enough to have a backup generator, and it has got a lot of use, which is great. Like essentially for those in the city that don't know what that is or haven't had to use that, if your power goes out, the backup generator comes on and your place operates like essentially nothing happened. So I did have guests up during a really bad storm where a lot of people had their power out, and essentially that would ruin their experience. I mean, they would, toilets, nothing would be working. But I got a really good backup generator. It clicked on. It was running for over like 100 hours. So I have a guy up there that services it. He checks it on the app. He calls me and says, hey, you need an oil change. I'm coming by. So I just try to set myself up with systems in place where like I don't have to think too much. It's running on its own. So your cleaner, someone for a backup generator. I have a plumber. I have an electrician that I use up there. My contractors were actually all from Hamilton when I did my renovation. So to get them to go back up there obviously is unrealistic. But luckily, my neighbors next door, who are the most incredible people ever, make my life so much easier up there. He's a retired contractor. So when I have little things that come up, I give him a call. He checks on it. And my dad's like my full-time handyman. So when there's a layover in between guests and I need some things done, he gets to go up, enjoy the cottage, take care of what I need. And it's worked out really well. But it is important, like you do have to have things in place because something will always go wrong. Something will always break down. And you just need to be prepared for like, okay, someone's coming the next day. I need this fixed ASAP.
Yeah.
Because people are paying you and they want a good experience.
And especially like yours is, I mean, it's not super far, but 3 hours. Like you don't want to, if something small breaks, you don't want to be driving 3 hours one way to fix it and then 3 hours home.
No,
right?
especially with the cost of gas.
Yeah, yeah, and that new truck of yours. Jeez. Yeah, so the cleaning fees, something you mentioned. So I guess you have a different type of cleaner than, like you said, they do the linens, they stage it.
Yeah.
Do you provide like consumable stuff? Like, I know you have a Keurig up there, right?
Yeah.
Do you provide pods? Like, is that something like what's?
Yeah.
Or
No.
do you just tell people it's there and they can bring?
Good question. So I had a booklet made up essentially with like a hand guide to using the Cottage, which is huge. I give it to everyone before, and I'm like, read through all this. It's going to answer every question you have. So essentially, I stock the Cottage with everything you'll need to like live besides your food. So there's plates, there's everything in the kitchen you need to cook, like barbecue tongs, every utensil, pots, pans. I have 2 barbecues. I have a grill that goes over my little fire pit, so like if people want to do campfire cooking. Full kitchen, an extra fridge in the garage. We provide everything but not the food. So we have a coffee maker there, but we don't provide the coffee.
Okay.
Honestly, though, I know a lot of the people, so a lot of that gets left behind and people can reuse it. Typically, we ask people to bring their own toilet paper and paper towels, but sometimes people are forgetful, so I see my stash slowly dwindling away. I just provide all the linens, towels, and everything like that. And essentially, they bring up their toiletries and food.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like we did a cottage rental a few months ago, and we were told to bring our own toilet paper, but there was still, I guess, maybe the last guest left their toilet paper.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
You got lucky.
But yeah, so
firewood's a big one actually. People always
is.
ask about that, but I feel like if you provide it, they're just gonna have fires all day.
Yeah.
And it would
God
be
forbid.
like a never-ending expense. So I do tell people to bring their own firewood.
Yeah.
And I just think it's easier that way because they can buy what they want and burn what they want.
Yeah, for sure. Touch on somebody cutting the grass, having contractors on call. What else are we missing? Oh yeah, you have a lot of like games, like some things to consider, right?
Yeah,
like,
big time. That's my favorite part is
Yeah.
during the day I'm like, I want to play lawn games and I want to sit outside in the sun. So little things for the dock. You provide like tanning chairs. I've got cornhole, bocce, ladder ball, can jam. I just think about all the games that I want to play while I'm up there with my friends, and I leave them up there. So I think that's fun for guests. In the winter, I provide a hockey net, sports balls, a football, a soccer ball, all that stuff. And you think about like, kids are going to want to play with that stuff too while they're up there. So I just try to provide whatever you would want for a good weekend. If there's something really specific that they want for them, they'll know that I don't have it and they bring it up. The kayaks and the stand-up paddleboard are a huge hit too.
Yeah.
People love that. And then I bought like a big inflatable island that just sits right beside my dock essentially. And you can just lounge out and tan in that. Again, I just think about what I'd want to use.
In the summer, that dock's a huge part of it, eh?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the main, when you go to a cottage, like I've never been to one on the water that you don't sit on the dock all day.
And that was,
you're in the water.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest expenses in my renovation, surprisingly, was the dock, because as we know what happened to lumber prices during COVID, I'm hoping docks are cheaper now, but that surprised me. It was a really old dock when I purchased the property. They hadn't used it for years. And I'm like, this is where I'm going to spend most of my day. So that was one of the major expenses that I wanted to put my money into.
Nice. Do you mind me asking how much? Or
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was $16,000 for the dock.
Just for the dock, eh? But
So-
must have.
It's an essential.
Yeah.
It's an
That's
essential.
awesome. And then I guess, like, do you have any sort of tips and tricks for people that want to rent it out? Like,
Yeah, do your due diligence about who you're renting it to. I mean, it's very important to say no sometimes, or in a nice way, just say it's booked that weekend, because the headache just isn't worth it. So I make sure it's good people that I'm dealing with. I think that's really the important part there. Make sure you're stocked though. Like people, especially in the summer, right? I rent out for a week at a time for July and August. People can get bored quickly after a couple days. So you want to make sure you're providing them with enough things to do to keep them busy, and then options outside of the cottage. So educating them on restaurants in the area. You know, I have a winery down the street from me that does free fruit wine tastings and all that stuff, and just things to do to get them moving around so they don't get bored and they feel like they had a really good experience and they want to come back. Because that's what you want essentially, is that repeat clientele that gets to know your cottage, and it's like, hey, we want the same week next summer and every year moving forward. So to build that up is really important, but do your due diligence. It's just like any rental property in my opinion. And just really try to make the place bulletproof. Like there's even a couple things with my renovations that I would go back on that I've learned. Like
wear and tear.
Yeah, like an all white bathroom on the main level that looks beautiful in pictures, but it's like everybody's feet are like dirty by noon. And then you walk inside and you got this nice white hexagon tile. That's
that first floor one. I think that's the one that I was using. I wore my flip flops into the bathroom by the end of the first day.
That's how it goes, right? So like you want to think about things like that just to make it like almost commercial use. Go with like darker colors and more of a cottage vibe. Little things like that you learn, but you want to make it so like people can't break things too easily.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Plastic wine glasses.
The key, eh?
Yeah, even myself, I'm like, oh, I won't break it. I'm sitting out by the fire. It's on the armrest of my Muskoka chair. I sit down and
first thing to
here we go. Yeah.
That's okay. Well, that's awesome. That's been super informative. Thank you so much.
No problem.
If you guys have questions about renting your cottage out or what needs to go into it, drop a comment below or reach out to us.